I like to move it, especially when there's a mass exploitation. Using AI for sextortionism? Yep, it's real. And APIs aren't cheap. These stories and much more on today's episode of MSP Dispatch.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Ultimate IT Growth Conference, coming June 13th and 14th in Orlando, Florida. This is a workshop-oriented conference so you can walk away getting things done. Pick up some of Jennifer Bleem's best hints, tips, and tricks to grow your MSP and mature the way you think about growth. To register or find out more, visit mspsalesrevolution.com/ultimate. Good morning and welcome to your June 9th episode of MSP Dispatch, your source for news, community events, and commentary in the MSP channel. I'm your guest host, Phil Buck, back again, joined by our regular host, Tony Francisco. How's it going, Tony?
Excellent, Phil. Excellent. Great to see you again. It's kind of this weird switch when I'm traveling, Ray's traveling back and forth, and I think you're going to end up hosting the show more than both of us, which is awkward because you have your own show, AI. What's it called again?
AI Roundup. That's right. It's a Western themed show about AI that lassos and all that kind of stuff.
In AI, it's all virtual. It's all virtual lassoing. Huge. Kind of the next step once you went from Yellowstone. It was the Yellowstone spinoff. The AI Roundup went, okay, maybe not.
Yeah, a major spinoff.
or it's literally about cutting edge AI components, usage, modules, technology, use case scenarios. It could be about that.
Yeah, I mean, that actually sounds like a better idea. I'm going to take that back to the drawing board, see if we can work that into the next episode.
That's awesome. Phil, talk to me. What are we doing today?
We've got a bunch of really scary stories to talk about. So make sure you've got your Xanax ready, therapists on speed dial. It's going to be fun. And I mean, speaking of anxiety, I don't know if you've looked outside. Maybe you're southern enough that it's not affecting you, but for some reason, the New York City is looking like an apocalypse. I don't know if you've heard about this.
I have heard, man. That is horrible. You know what it is?
It's pretty awful.
It's those Canadians. They look like us. They try to sound like us, but they're not. Look what they do.
You can always catch them once they start saying house or a boot.
boot.
Now I got you. But I guess Canada's on fire and it's filling much of the U.S. with smoke. Shout out to all the folks in New York State where we got this picture from. Actually, this one is from New York City.
Mike B.
An MSP located on 7th Avenue in New York City. So thanks to Mike B for sending us this picture. It looks awful.
It looks fake.
Stay with you for a little while in Florida?
I know. It looks fake. I mean, it looks like you kind of put the orange tint over it, but from what I'm hearing, the particles in the air is so bad right now in New York City, that it's one of the most polluted areas in the world, from what I understand. This is horrible. And frankly, I'm really hoping that we hear from our Canadian brethren in the MSP world, because we have a lot of MSP family up in Canada. What is it like there? I mean, is it the same? What would be hilarious is if they say, oh, it's not that bad. It's blowing all south to New York. That's horrible. It's horrible to say.
That would be, if anybody could just push the smoke off. I'm sure that's exactly what they would do. Just you guys just handle that for us, okay?
Hey, be like, hey, New Yorkers, you're tough. You can handle this. You're good.
Well, we send all of our regards up north to anybody affected. Obviously, it's awful. We're joking, but still, we hope that you guys get some relief soon. But you know what? I think it's time to do, instead of talking about smoke,
let's get into the news.
In our first story from darkreading.com by Jai Vijay, mass exploitation of zero-day bug in MOVEit file transfer underway. A threat group with likely links to the financially motivated group known as Fin11 and others is actively exploiting a zero-day vulnerability found in Progress Software's MOVEit transfer app. The exploit is being used to steal data from organizations using the managed file transfer technology. The technology is used by organizations to exchange sensitive data in large files, and Progress claims thousands of customers for the product, including names such as Disney, Chase, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Major League Baseball. Researchers from Google's Mandiant Security Group, who are tracking the threat, believe the exploit activity may be a precursor to follow-on ransomware attacks on orgs that have fallen victim so far. The Microsoft Threat Intelligence team said via Twitter that it has attributed the attack to Lace Tempest, a financially motivated threat and ransomware affiliate to Fin11 and other groups. Following exploitation of the vulnerability, threat actors are deploying a newly discovered Lemurloot web shell with file names that masquerade as legitimate components of the MOVEit transfer software, according to Mandiant in a blog post from June 2nd. The web shell allows attackers to issue commands for enumerating files and folders on a system running the transfer software, retrieve configuration information, and create or delete a user account. Progress, the company behind MOVEit, has advised customers to review their environments for suspicious activity during the past 30 days, suggesting the exploit may have been actively used for at least that long. Friend of the show, John Hammond, senior security researcher at Huntress, says his company's investigation of the zero-day vulnerability could either be an SQL injection flaw, as Progress has indicated, an unrestricted file upload vulnerability, or both. So, Tony, this has got to have the anxiety going crazy right now. If I'm to understand this right, and I'm sure you can explain it to me better, this has been going on for at least 30 days. There's obviously been some kind of attack, but now there's all kinds of other things we're just waiting to see that could happen. Is that the gist of this?
There's a lot to unpack here. I think that the only savior in this whole thing is, frankly, before the show, everyone, we were looking at the titles, and the obviously the exploit is MOVEit, and so I like to move it. I like to move it, and then of course the web shell. Okay, is Lemurloot. So you've got lemurs with the I like to move it. Now that when I read the article, I was like, oh, this is awesome, but it's so bad. I have such a huge cocktail of emotions right now, which goes into, let's go back into my my neurotic anxiety attack here. I've talked about this so many times, where if you find out that you've been hacked or you find an exploitation, rest assured, if someone is behind that exploitation in some capacity, you have found, for all intents and purposes, what is a disposable, if they know what they're doing, it's a disposable hack. What that covering that exploitation will do is trigger an alert to whoever the assailant is and say, ooh, got to be a little bit more low key on my tactics now. And the secondary and tertiary nesting points are now going to be very coveted, very, very, very special. So whatever you find is probably one of several. No one's ever going to use one hack and just let's keep our fingers crossed and use hope as a strategy that they don't find this. They are now going to root in and reverse SSH in from different components, different pillars of the organization as fast as possible, with the understanding that they have approximately 72 hours before that exploit is covered up. And once that is covered up, then they have to rinse and repeat. So anyway, so the
what
point
you're saying, hacks are like potato chips. You can't have just one.
Can't have just one. I like to
once you pop, you can't stop. You just keep pop.
So when we hear of things occurring in the news, it is the metaphorical tip of the iceberg. And without getting into too much detail on this, if they're talking about a SQL injection, I'm really curious as to how that is bubbled up into other portions of the organization, because this is one of many things. In SQL injection flaw is the lifeblood of everything in the organization. And they can then, from that point forward, move into, if you're authenticated at a database level, move into everything in the application and possibly the organization as well. So we could talk about this for a long time. I'm just hoping. John Hammond, I love him over at Huntress. I'm hoping we get more information. I'm hoping that everyone does the updates that are required to minimize the blast radius of this as fast as possible.
Everyone stay vigilant, stay tuned to Huntress, and stay tuned to the news, which surely the next story can't be any worse than that, can it, Tony?
Yes. And in my first story from bleepingcomputer.com, Sextortionists, that's a real thing, are making AI nudes from your social media images. The FBI is warning of a rising trend of malicious actors creating deep fake content to perform sextortion attacks. Sextortion is a form of online blackmail where malicious actors threaten their targets by publicly leaking explicit images and videos they stole or acquired, typically demanding financial payment for withholding the material. In many cases, the compromising content isn't real, with threat actors pretending to have access to scare victims into complying with their demands. FBI warns that sextortionists, I'm struggling with this one, people, are now scraping publicly available images of their targets, innocuous pictures and videos, and posting on social media platforms. The images and other forms of media are fed into deep fake content creation tools that turn them into AI-generated sexually explicit content. While the images aren't genuine, they look very real and they can serve the threat actor's purpose and still cause the victims great emotional and reputational harm. The FBI adds that explicit content creators sometimes skip the extortion part and post the created video straight to pornographic websites, exposing victims to a large audience without their knowledge or consent. Phil, let's talk about this for a moment. We can unpack this. I will say that there's a portion of the article that says, if you discover deepfake content, depicting you on pornographic material or websites, report it to your authorities immediately and contacting the hosting platform. This is back to do you remember, I can't remember the website where they would you post bad images of someone you hated and it was anonymous, and then good luck getting that taken down because that was their revenue driver. Is this going to end up being the same thing? Because everyone's looking for content, and we now have unlimited content with social media just being available everywhere, and AI to create sextortionists, which, by the way, there's a part of me that deeply hopes that someone takes my pictures and I have like ripped abs. I'm like, oh, there's a part of me. There's a part. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. And by that, I mean, you're thinking, man, if Tony just looked a little bit better, that'd be really cool. He doesn't have the legs of a 7-year-old, Vietnamese girl. He actually had some real calves, possibly. That would be, I don't know if that's considered sextortionism, but is this going to turn into something kind of what we witnessed in the early 2000s?
It's terrifying because to me, to know that it's so easy to train models from a social media, if somebody posts a lot, some of these models that I've seen people training, either the big AI models or even the little ones, LoRa's, they're saying they can do it with like 8 images or something very accurately now. So it is kind of terrifying. I can't even imagine what the fallout of this is going to be. I mean, like you said, you took the words out of my mouth. If somebody's doing this to me, the fake images are probably better than what I would look like in real life. So I'm kind of like, are you doing me a favor here, or is this?
Hold on, we say that now, and then
true.
we see what we see, and we're like, hey, that may have been going a little too far. If that offends me about me, that says a lot of how bad it actually is. And I'm wondering, what is the recoil? When is it considered? Here's the interesting question, and I really want you to noodle this for a moment. When is the image that's taken off of your Facebook or Instagram or one of these podcasts, when is that image that is AI manipulated to something, we'll call it sexual, we'll call it whatever, when is that considered an individual copyrightable piece of art that is no longer you?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question to answer. It's one that we've been examining a lot on AI Roundup. There's a lot of pending court cases that will determine that answer to that question. One that just happened in the Supreme Court is saying that fair use doesn't apply to these things if they're used for commercial purposes. Now, obviously, this is way outside the realm of that because this is criminal activity. I'm curious, does this start, making, very heinous crimes, even though they're generated images? I mean, do the same laws apply if you were to be doing this to real images of people, or is it somehow different?
That's my point. I mean, this could turn into something. Think about this. Think about somebody taking your picture, AI creating an entire, you can create a movie, you can create a comic book set. It's clearly you. You look at that, but it's not you. But it's clearly you, and it originated from you, and there's a monetary value associated to that. I am so interested to see how this evolves. And I'm not even talking about the emotional luggage that in the entanglement that this has. We could talk about this a lot, but you know what? Every one of those things I just said involves APIs. Phil, let's talk about them.
And for our third story in the business section of the show from arstechnica.com by Sharon Harding, Reddit insists on being fairly paid amid API price protest plans and layoffs. As thousands of subreddits prepare to go dark in 5 days to protest Reddit's increase in API fees, Reddit claims it's only asking for what's fair. At the same time, the company is reportedly enacting layoffs and slowing hiring. It's sensible for Reddit to try to make money off of third-party apps, considering their popularity and that most don't show Reddit's ads, which is how the platform makes most of its revenue. There has been, however, widespread debate about how much Reddit will charge and claims that exorbitant fees are trying to exterminate third-party Reddit apps altogether. The discourse hit a boiling point when Christian Seleg, a developer for Apollo, the most popular Reddit app, said they'd have to pay Reddit $20 million per year to keep running as is. In a statement to Bloomberg, Reddit spokesperson Tim Rathschmidt said Reddit spends millions on hosting and is only seeking fair payment for API access. With over 2,000 subreddits, including some with tens of millions of subscribers planning to participate in a blackout on June 12th, we'll see how Reddit moves forward with the third-party app community it claims it isn't trying to kill. Okay, so Tony, this seems fair, but people are upset. Obviously, Twitter had an API thing recently, but I don't think it had to do with pricing. Maybe that was just an Elon thing. What is your takeaway on this? If you were hosting Reddit, do you think this is a fair ask, or is this legitimately just trying to kill these third-party apps?
Phil, you've actually got a really good point in the latter portion, which is, are they trying to kill it? And the question is, what is the strategy to move forward without them? I'm a huge fan of inverting everything. So I'm going to do something, and there may be positives and negatives. What if I don't do it? What's the outcome? I personally, I'm a 5-year-old talking to, college professors that research this stuff. I see a model that is not viable. $20 million. Well, we clearly see a model that's not viable for Apollo, the app that I personally use. But let's really boil this down to two things. If there is a problem with a non-viable model, in this particular case, a business model, which is the cost over the expense over the revenue generated, the question is, how do you resolve that? You resolve that by lowering costs or increasing revenue. That's pretty much it. And that's how you offset the issue. In this particular case, by increasing the revenue, you have a massive, it almost looks like an exploitation of something. But as you pointed out, it could also be a strategy. And I'm wondering what the solution is. But why don't we look at the other side? Lowering costs. Hosting. What does that involve? Does that involve a large portion of processing? Is it majority of storage? Is there truly a bandwidth concern? Is there a way the databases, and we're going to get into a technical target, instant narcolepsy for everyone on the call, and I apologize, but are we talking about a database compression level? Is the database, because there's so much video and pictures stored on the database, is the database a binary large object database set, or can that be put in a lake somewhere else that's very specifically blob oriented? Is there a faster Postgres SQL database. That's a freestyle database. And can this be in some way, shape, or form distributed, which may not be as fast, but it would be far more efficient, effective, and frankly, less expensive? Is there a better architecture on the back end that can lower the cost? I'm really curious as to what is driving that cost, because it is clear in this that raising the revenue is causing a huge concern, but it could be matched, as you said, to the strategy of getting rid of these third-party apps. And I don't see the value in that. In fact, this is Reddit by definition is a huge ocean of information. So distributing as many ways for people to access that repository, read or put in data, the better. Sorry, I'm going on and on. Phil, give me your thoughts on this.
Okay, let me just say, this begs the question: if they enact this and say it kills Apollo, which you say you use, would that effectively lead you to go use Reddit directly and thus improving their ad revenue, or would you find an alternative? Would you do something different?
Hey, you and your rational reasoning. I don't know. Come on, man. You're ruining I've got this like conspiracy theory, like their exploitation, resource exploitation, and their cyber, criminal activity. No, just use another app. No, I don't know. I'm really curious as to what their strategy is, but I'm of the opinion that there has to be a better way to, I would say, function with the hosting concern that they have. I think if there may be a rebuild required, I'd be wondering how long that would take. That's a massive project, but that could have a massive impact in a positive direction, leaving third-party applications as is.
Absolutely. I think this would be a great chance for the MSPs or just the viewers. Sound off in the Discord. Let us know what you would do if your Reddit aggregator or whatever it was gone. What would you do? Would you go use Reddit like the normal site, or would you find some other alternative?
That's great.
Anyway, I think that means we're done with story 3. So that means we got some notables.
Notables. Let's do it.
In my first notable mention from darkreading.com by Elizabeth Montalbano, 60,000 plus Android apps have delivered adware undetected for months. More than 60,000 malicious Android apps targeted global users for more than 6 months, with adware disguised as fake security software, game cracks, cheats, VPN software, and more. Bitdefender researchers discovered the campaign, which they said mainly targets US Android users, which they believe began in October of last year. The researchers expect there are currently more apps distributing the same malware in the wild. When users open a website from a Google search of a modded app, they're directed to a random ad page that is often a download page for malware disguised as a legitimate download. The existence of the campaign demonstrates that despite all of the steps taken to thwart mobile Android malware, it remains fairly easy for actors to continue to use Android as a platform for threat activity. As always, it's a good step for user protection to avoid downloading apps from sources other than the official app stores. And in my next notable mention from darkreading.com, Microsoft preps $425 million payment for LinkedIn GDPR violations. In a disclosure released by Microsoft, the company announced that it will reserve $425 million to pay a fine it anticipated receiving from the Irish Data Protection Commission due to potential GDPR violations by its subsidiary media site LinkedIn. In 2018, the Irish DPC began an investigation into LinkedIn after a complaint was made claiming the company was allegedly using targeted advertising practices that were in violation of the GDPR. After receiving a preliminary draft decision from the Irish DPC in April with the findings, Microsoft complied with the inquiry and set aside the monetary funds for Q4 2023. The company plans on disputing these fines once a final decision is made, but warned shareholders that it set aside the funds to pay it nonetheless.
And in my first notable mention from darkreading.com, an easily exploitable Microsoft Visual Studio bug opens developers to takeovers. Security researchers are warning about a bug in Microsoft Visual Studio installer that gives cyber attackers a way to create and distribute malicious extensions to application developers under the guise of being a legitimate software publisher. From there, they could infiltrate development environments, taking control, poisoning code, stealing IP, and more. Microsoft issued a patch for spoofing vulnerabilities, tracked as CVE 2023-28299, with its monthly security update for April. At this time, the company described the vulnerability as being moderate in nature and assessed it as one that attackers are less likely to exploit. Researchers from Varonis, who discovered the vulnerability, offered a slightly different take on the bug and its potential impact. According to Varonis, the bug merits attention because it's easily exploitable, and it exists in a product with a 26% market share and more than 30,000 customers. And in my second notable mention from bleepingcomputer.com, Cisco fixes AnyConnect bug, giving Windows system privileges. Cisco has fixed a high-severity vulnerability found in Cisco secure client software that let attackers escalate privileges to the system account used by the operating system. Cisco Secure Client enables employees to work from anywhere via VPN and provides admins with endpoint management and telemetry features. Low-privileged local attackers can exploit the security flaw CVE 2023-2178 in a low-complexity attack that don't require user interaction. The bug was fixed in AnyConnect Security Mobility Client for Windows 4.10 MR7 and Cisco Secure Client for Windows 5.0 MR2. The company's product security incident response team is yet to find the evidence of malicious use in the wild or publicly exploited code targeting the bug.
All right, everybody, for today's AI Roundup, an announcement that I've been patiently awaiting for quite some time. Runway ML's Gen 2 is finally available to the public. Runway has made its Gen 2 text-to-video tool available to the public for free. The online tool creates 4-second videos based on user prompts such as robot drinking a beer, though the generated videos have no sound and minimal movement. Users can also use images for inspiration, though there are limitations in reproducing specific characters or corporate logos. The Gen 2 tool was previously available via a closed beta on Discord, but now can be accessed on the company's website. Users need to sign up for a free account, which limits them to 15 clips or 60 seconds of video. To remove the watermarks and receive additional features, a standard account is required, which costs $15 per month or $144 per year, and allows for the creation of 125 seconds of video per month. You know, of course, I had to try this out, so I tried to see if I could get Gen 2 to make some videos inspired by MSP Dispatch, the videos that you're going to be seeing here. I used the prompts: 2 men reporting technology news, 2 men sitting at a news desk with amazingly long eyebrows reporting on technology news. And finally, I was trying to get eyebrows on fleek, you guys. Finally, the last one was 2 men sitting at a news desk with amazingly long eyebrows reporting on technology news, comma, men with very long eyebrow hair. And unfortunately, none of these videos featured eyebrows on fleek, but hey, at least we know us humans will still not be replaced by AI for our eyebrows anytime soon. I hope you guys go try it out. If you do, drop into the Discord and let us see what you've been making. And that's it for today's AI Roundup. There are plenty of amazing upcoming events taking place across the community, so let's see what's happening this week. Later today at 12 o'clock Eastern Time, Channel Engage June presented by the Channel Program. Then next week on the 13th through the 14th, an in-person event, the Ultimate IT Growth Conference in Orlando, Florida. And on June 15th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Cyber Insurance Masterclass Closing the Gap is My Stack Insurance Ready presented by Huntress. And coming from the MSP Media Network this week, we have, in case you missed it, the 38 at 38 Anniversary Special. And later today at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Pitch It 2023 Vendor Spotlight featuring Binox, MSP, and Bizity. And as always, on Tuesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, MSP Dispatch presented by the MSP Media Network.
Hi, I'm Aaron, and I'm a jobaholic. We all have something in common. We all have a worst job story. Each episode, I'll welcome one guest to share their most insane worst job story. And in return, I'll share one of mine. Join me the first Friday of every month for new episodes of 38 at 38.
So, how did you like today's show? If you liked it, please hit that thumbs up button. And if you didn't, go ahead and hit it any odd number, as we like to say around here. And if you want to hear more, go ahead and hit the subscribe button on YouTube or your favorite podcatcher. Did you know we also have a Discord where we post stories all week? You can propose your own stories and even vote on which ones we'll cover. And as everybody's friend says, Rich Banky, I think he's friends with everyone now. Make sure to tell a friend. Be sure to follow us on social media at MSP Media TV. If you have any questions, you can email news@mspmedia.tv for answers on the next episode, or leave us a voicemail at 833-MSP-NETWORK. And that is another episode of MSP Dispatch. What did you think, Tony? Did I make it okay with you?
You did amazing. The AI Roundup is awesome. If you haven't seen it, please see it. It's definitely a podcast you want to catch. Another quick plug. Last night I did a podcast on all things MSP with Eric Anthony. That was awesome. It was an hour long
card for that right up there. Actually,
that'd be kind of cool. Last night, Eric Anthony, we were talking about MSPs, vendor relationships, the MSP experience, all the things we talk about here, without the trauma of ransomware and exploitations and all the things that give me anxiety. But it was a late night podcast, so I could actually go to sleep after, which was nice. But and he loves the MSP Dispatch. Everyone in the tech degenerate, that's the actual group, the tech degenerate group in the MSP industry loves the MSP Dispatch. And this is nice. It was really nice to kind of see the cross-pollination. He's like, Tony, get on the show. This is good. We all watch you over there. Get on the show over here. So there's my plug out. But the AI Roundup, all things MSP, YouTube, all your podcatchers, that's the place to be. But today was another excellent show. And Phil, thank you so much for co-hosting. I truly believe you're going to end up hosting this.
Thanks for having me.
You're going to host it more than Ray and I together as we swap. You're going to be the common denominator.
Are y'all going to start editing for me some then? Is that the trade-off here?
You don't want that. You don't want that.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Good show, man. Well, to everyone out there, be safe. Update your firmware, please, and your software, and stay up to date with all the news here on MSP Dispatch. Take care, everyone.
All right, everybody. Have a great weekend.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.
Well, for our first story in the security stack, off to a great start. And in our first story by Jai Vajine from, oh my God. I'm so sorry. Give me a second. I can see Tony now. Yeah, this is, you guys finally get your revenge on me.
The FBI warning. I'll kick that one right from. FBI warns that Sextortionists. Let me go. FBI warns that Sextortionists. I'm struggling on this one, people. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna.
All right, just one quick correction. Phil, you said RSS alligator.
I did?
No, you didn't.
Come on now.
That was really funny.
I'm under enough pressure here, Matt. The smoke's going to your brain.
I want to go to sleep so badly.
Which smoke?